Well guys, we have now made it to the last film in the franchise before getting to Final Reckoning, and that film is Mission Impossible Fallout, which is once again written and directed by Christopher McQuarrie. Ethan and the IMF are now working for the CIA and have to find 3 plutonium cores that have been planted by the Syndicate with their agents that call themselves the Apossiles, led by a terrorist that goes by the alias John Lark. And with the help of a CIA assassin named August Walker, played by Henry Cavil, they have to work together to find these cores before they fall into the wrong hands. While Solomon Lane is also back, and he's making Ethan's mission worse when he decides to make it more personal to him. I was excited when this film was coming out because this franchise was still going strong after Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation, and it's one of those movie experiences that I'll never forget, and I still feel that way to this day. And for a few years, this movie has been on par with Ghost Protocol for me as which one is my favorite Mission Impossible film. I just couldn't decide back then because both of them were that good. And Ethan is now putting his team at serious risk when he has to get these plutonium cores. Now, they've been on serious risks before in the other films. They've been in some serious stuff before. But the difference here is that when you see them try to do this mission, you get the feeling that, like, some of them could die. Where you start to like these characters throughout the previous films, and some of them, like Luther and Benji, are now close to Ethan. But when you see them in a terrible situation like this, it gives you the feeling that, like, some of them could get killed. And of course, there's more pressure for Ethan because Solomon Lane is back, and he has a lot of secrets in his head that are supposed to explain what he's doing with the core and what he's got with the Syndicate. And of course, I've been saying this in the previous reviews, the action sequences here are fantastic. The stunts, the choreography are all top notch. It's pretty much always been the highlight of these films, and I know at this point it's kind of been a cliche of me saying that, but it's true. Like, you have great chase sequences like with Ethan in Paris, or this bathroom scene where him and Walker, played by Henry Cavill, are trying to get this guy in the bathroom, which is a very brutal fight, by the way. Like, when you see these guys fighting this guy, you get the feeling that, like, they're getting seriously injured throughout this scene. There's another great chase scene with Ethan in London, where Tom Cruise, of course, injures his leg in the process, and you get the famous halo jump in the beginning of the film, which the way they film that scene is insane. Like, they have a guy with a helmet that has a camera on top of it. Like, trying to shoot that is crazy to me. And of course, the final chase scene with 2 helicopters in the end is very gripping, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat. For me, all the action sequences and the stunts in this film are some of the best in this franchise, and they are on par with the Burj Khalifa scene from Ghost Protocol. And that's one of the reasons why I love Mission Impossible Fallout. It has a lot of stuff that I loved about the previous films and just amps them up for this film, and it's probably the best in the franchise. Haven't got to Final Reckoning yet because that's not released in theaters yet, at least by the time I'm making this review. I also gotta mention the cinematography. This is a very well shot movie where you see everything happening on screen, as well as using some dark lighting in some nighttime scenes or in dark rooms that are supposed to build up some of the tension. Of course, the characters we know and love from the previous films are back, like Ethan, Benji, and Luther return, as well as Alec Baldwin from Rogue Nation, and even Ilsa Faust, played by Rebecca Fergusson, also comes back for this film. But of course, you got some new actors in this film, like Vanessa Kirby, Angela Bassett, and Superman himself, Henry Cavill, where Vanessa Kirby is a widow that does help Ethan try to figure out where Solomon Lane is. Angela Bassett plays a member of the CIA that doesn't trust Ethan at all. And there's Henry Cavill as Agent Walker, Angela Bassett's assassin that helps Ethan on the mission. And of course, he has the famous mustache that they covered in Justice League, which later created all the memes about his mustache. And he's doing the arm thing when he's helping Ethan get this guy in the bathroom. And then there is John Lark, the main bad guy that Ethan is trying to look for and is trying to help Solomon Lane escape. Now, when I talk about this character, just like in my reviews for the first film and in the fourth film, this review is going to contain some spoilers. So I am unfortunately going to have to talk about the twist that this villain has, and if you don't want anything spoiled for you, then skip to here. So, we find out that John Lark, the main person that's helping Solomon Lane escape and doing all this terrible stuff with the Apossiles, is actually Walker, where he's an undercover agent that's been messing with both Ethan and the CIA to get what he wants, and he planted plutonium in this one location where Julia is, Ethan's former wife, played once again by Michelle Monaghan. Now, with this twist that they have for him, it may seem predictable for some people, and maybe they wouldn't like him as the villain because of that, but that actually makes him a much more threatening and interesting villain. Whereas you go back and rewatch this film knowing the twist, you can see that he's ruining some parts of the mission on purpose for Ethan. Like in the bathroom scene when they're supposed to get this guy so that they would make a mask of that person for Ethan to wear, but Walker just hits the guy with that briefcase and ruins the mission. And he's also showing files about Solomon Lane to Angela Bassett, and when you see that twist happen, you see him as more of a threatening villain, making him a very terrifying villain where he's not screwing around and has a solid performance from Henry Cavil. Now, I do have one issue with this film, and it's a similar issue that I have with Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, and that is the story. It doesn't feel all that different compared to the other films, where the idea of having 3 cores with plutonium inside them and having them be around the world doesn't feel like a very different type of story. But what makes it work for this film is the execution. Like, with the characters still being likable, the plot still being interesting with all the stakes just getting higher and higher. The action sequences are very intense and a lot of fun to watch. You get the feeling that like anyone could die in this mission. It's still engaging, and it has a really good villain that's just as good as Philip Seymour Hoffman from the third film. So like I said earlier in this video, it was hard for me to decide if 4 or 6 were my favorite Mission Impossible film, but since I've rewatched both of them for these reviews, I now feel confident in saying that Mission Impossible Fallout is my favorite Mission Impossible film, where it just constantly raises the stakes, it has great characters, and it has a much better villain than Ghost Protocol did. I'm gonna give Mission Impossible Fallout an A, and that concludes my Mission Impossible reviews. I already reviewed Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning when that was in theaters. If you want to know my thoughts on that film, I will leave a link for that in the description below. And now that I'm done reviewing all the films until Final Reckoning, I can now relax because I spent a lot of time making these reviews and it's very time consuming. I mean, I had fun making these reviews, but it can also be very exhausting. So after I finish filming, I'm gonna get some rest. So guys, if you have seen Mission Impossible Fallout, what did you think about it? Do you think it's the best Mission Impossible film, or do you think this is not for me? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like this video, then please leave a like and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss a thing, because it helps my channel grow. Hit the notification bell so you know what other videos I'm posting. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.